Okay, welcome back. We've just zoomed the document to an absurd level. We're at like 300% zoom. And so now a thing we probably need to do is to figure out how to get it back. Okay, to make this thing work, if I go back to my view here, one of the things is this thing called one page. See here at the top? One page means, I see everything, cool, and page width is normally the way I like it. Page width means I get to see the width of the page. Now, if I had a wide aspect monitor and perhaps had it turned sideways, I may be able to see the entire thing. But so in my case, page width is the limiting factor, and so I see the width of the page, but I certainly don't see the height. I have to scroll up and back to be able to see the top and the bottom. But this is how I like to do it. It's zoomed in as much as I can possibly get away with. There's another one called 100%, which is kind of weird, and what it tries to do is it tries to match the physical size of the piece of paper, okay? And it doesn't actually do it all that well, so I look at that and go, well, you can kind of sort of hold a piece of paper up, and in my case, it's a little off. So I don't ever bother with that guy. I just go for, I start with page width, I usually end up with page width. Okay. Some people are really crazy when it comes to being able to see the formatting marks. This used to be a big thing. 10 million years ago when the word processing first came out, there was an awful lot of issues with, you'd get these formatting errors and you couldn't figure out how to turn something off. It was just too complex. So being able to reveal codes was a very cool, compelling feature. Alright, so we're going to do that, although the author of the book has you turn this feature on page 1. I'm going to go back to the Home tab. Now that I'm back on the Home tab, I have this little backwards P, the paragraph mark, and you just toggle it. Turns it on, turns it off, turns it on, turns it off. And so what this guy shows is several things. I can see that there's a hard carriage return here. Remember when I hit the enter or the return, I said carriage return, but on the keyboard it's probably going to be marked enter or return. That's the paragraph mark. This little arrow right here means that there's a tab. Now I didn't type the tab, but it put one in there nevertheless. And what are these little dots here? These little dots here? I didn't type those. Well, those are the spaces. So you can actually see where there is a space. Okay, now if you zoom in a little bit more, on the normal text, you can see it says Mary dot, had a dot, whatever. So I get to see spaces, tabs, all the invisible things. Normally in a document you could not see a return for a paragraph. You could not see a tab. You could not see a space. So all this does is make those things visible so you can see them. Nah, I'm turning it off. I don't particularly need that. Okay, we have one more thing to go, and that is we talk about paragraph justification. So I'm gonna grab some stuff. I'm just gonna grab this text, and I'm gonna use the keyboard shortcut now. Again, as I've said a gazillion times before, there's like 5 different ways to do it. I'm just gonna do Control C. Okay, that means copy. I'm gonna find me a blank spot in the document here somewhere, and I'm gonna do paste, and I'm gonna do a couple more paste here because I really want a fairly decent sized paragraph. Okay. So all I did was I did Control C to copy, and then I did a Control V to paste. And again, how you did that, whether you went back up here and hit the paste button, that's fine. That's not really relevant. What I was really trying to do, of course, is to get a document with a lot of lines in it. What I want to show you is the justification. So right now, this guy has, everything lines up really nicely on the left margin. And that shows right here that it's a left alignment for the paragraph. I could light up this entire paragraph and say I want it to be right aligned. Okay, and it did it. It just looks a little strange. So most people, we used center before because center is what we used for the title. Remember the title? So in most Western languages, left justification makes a heck of a lot of sense. But there's a fourth one here. And that's what's called full justification. And this is where what it tries to do is it tries to stretch out the spacing of the of the words, and so that both the left and the right margins are perfectly straight, smooth. There's no, right now there's a jagged right margin. So if I hit this guy, it doink. Now I have a perfectly smooth right margin and a perfectly smooth left margin. Cool? All right. Some people for newspapers do this. They make like columns. So if you don't care about the right margin, just leave it ragged. But if you're going to put things in a column, or you're going to do some changes to the indentation level, well then where you want to actually see the margins as they are, well then full justification is probably the way to go. So one more tweak we're going to do to this is I'm going to pull in the indentation. Now this little guy just changes the indentation level, increases or decreases the indentation on that left margin. Now that's not exactly what I want to do here. I want to change the entire thing. So I'm going to go to Page Layout, the Page Layout tab. And now when it has left and right, they're not talking about the first indentation level in the thing. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the entire thing. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to, I could type or I could just use the little up arrow here. And I'm going to make this 1 inch for the left, and I'm going to make it 1 inch for the right for no particular reason other than I can. Okay, so now everything is lined up, full justification, because I have full justification turned on, so it does not have a ragged right margin. And now I've increased the indentation for that one paragraph. Now what's the difference between indentation and margins? Well, margins is per page. If I go here to change this, and I change the margins, there can only be one margin for a page, okay? But clearly here, I have several indentations. Okay, cool. Alrighty. One last thing and we're done. We need to go back to the backstage. And the backstage is the file, the colored tab across the top. And I assume it's called backstage because when you hit this button, it obliterates the view of your document and you're brought to this. This is where you would tweak the properties of your document if you were so inclined. Let's look at what properties they got. Okay, the file size is 388. It's only got one page. It's got 153 words. And geez, I've been editing this thing for 80 minutes. Good Lord. I can add a title. Now, the title is not going to appear printed anywhere. It's just for doing searches. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to click, and I'm going to type, kumquat. And the tag, I can say Temuk and CIS300. Now the purpose for putting these things in is not because they're going to be printed. It's not because they're going to show in the document. It's for document management. If I had 10,000 Word documents on my system, oh yeah, I need that. Because the boss is going to pop in and say, show me the merger document that we did 6 months ago. And I go, merger. I want to do a search. And so I'm searching for these tags or the title. And it'll get me exactly what I want really, really quickly. I can also just add general comments. And this, you don't normally search against comments, but it's kind of cool anyway. I could say, demo document for video. Something of that nature. The author, this gets filled in by the machine, and it may be some funky name. You may have put, Stud Monkey, as your login when you logged in your computer. But when you come to here, you probably don't want to have it Stud Monkey. You probably want to have something else. So yeah, you can change the author, and so the author is kind of cool when you send a document off to get revised. And so if somebody else revises it, they can see, this person made this change, and so make sure you use meaningful names and not Stud Monkey. Okay, cool. Word to the wise, almost like perhaps I've been there before. Okay, so here's all the properties, and of course the last thing we're going to do before we go is we're going to print. We talked about this before. About it used to be you had a print and a print preview, cool, and now all we have is just this one thing. And there's all sorts of stuff that you could go through, and the book kind of goes through it, but do I want to print double-sided? If it's collated, do I want it landscape? Or I want it portrait? all the things you want to do. But most people, when they get to this page, they just hit the dang print button. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And if you listen, you can probably hear my printer kick in. And it's currently printing the document. Yay! Okay, that's all we had for this rest of this chapter. So please do kind of take a minute to go through this and remember all the things we learned. We learned how to enter text, how to highlight text and change its font, change its size, change its colors, change its style. We learned about indentation. We learned about justification. We learned how to do bullets. We learned how to do photographs and make sure you compress the image when you're done. And properties, and then finally printing. Okay? Cool. Well, that is the end. So I guess I will see you guys again in some other chapter.